right. Welcome to the Mom Room. My first question for you, which I meant to ask before I pressed record, was where are you located?
I'm in Calgary. Yeah, we have
Okay.
a team that works here in Calgary. I've been here for 14 years, but a lot of people get my how-to guides and do one-on-ones virtually, and becomes more like coaching sessions too. But I'm in
Got
Calgary.
it. I feel like the last three people, like I recorded an episode with Go Clean Co. Sarah.
Sarah,
She's
yeah.
in Calgary. I just recorded yesterday with the Mama Coach. She's in Calgary. I'm like, okay, so all the Calgary people.
Nice.
So I'm curious how you started GoSimplified. Like, where did the idea come from? Have you always been into organization and decluttering? Where did it come from and how has it grown so much?
I haven't always been into it, but I've been doing it, as I said, for about 14 years. I've had a lot of other careers, one in mental health, one in entrepreneurs, one in sales. I worked for Johnson & Johnson for 10 years. I think I just love helping people. And when I started having my family, I realized that I just got introduced to moms that were overwhelmed, right? Like what to do with this stuff, what to do with toys, just all this stuff starts coming in, I think, all at once. And no one knew what to do. And everybody was frustrated. Nobody knew where to start. And it was stressful and anxiety provoking. And as if it isn't always, already hard enough. And then start adding how to deal with your house. And then the entire unicorn space comes in, as Eve Rodsky says, of invisible tasks. And you start taking these on, even if you're working or you're a working mom. So I just saw a lot of frustration, anxiety, people losing their time, their space, their mental health, their physical health, their money. And I started just helping friends. And then I started getting calls because friends were talking, and it was life changing. People were like, wow, I got my space back. I got my time back. I got my energy back. I got systems set up, and now I know what to do, because it's a real mental shift. There's a real psychology behind it.
It's funny, just as you were talking, I was thinking how when I was living by myself in grad school, like my apartments were so organized, no clutter. It was incredible. And then, like you said, once you have a child or children, they come with so much stuff. And then at the same time, you have no time to, like, that's where all your free time goes out the window too. So now it's like lots of stuff, no time to declutter and organize. So one of the points that you mentioned was that a lot of people jump to trying to organize without decluttering. That is so me. I'm the one that like buys all the clear containers at HomeSense, and then I come home and I'm like, I didn't even have a plan for these containers, and then they become part of the clutter, which is, like that's ironic. So why is it so important for people to declutter first?
Because you can't organize your way out of a mess, right? And we're hunters and gatherers. And so the instinct in us is to want to collect, to solve a problem. And decluttering is hard. When we did Jillian Harris's house, for example, we did it twice. The first time we went, it took us 100 hours to do it. And why I like this example isn't because it's Jillian, but it's because the first time we went, it took us 100 hours. The second time we went, it took us 20 hours because we had systems in place and the hard work was done. So yeah, I'm going to write a mental health decluttering guide because that's the hard part. And I think that it's like a learner's license and a driver's license, right? And the learner's license is decluttering and the driver's license is organizing. And you cannot drive or you're going to crash unless you've learned. And nobody wants to do that learning because that's the hard part of letting go. And there's such a psychology behind letting go of, I find there's a run-on sentence, but I think there's 7 basic reasons why people don't want to let go. And they're usually the same, but there's a different way to look at it when your perspective shift changes, and there's different questions to ask yourself so that you're not living in the past with those 7 reasons to hang on. You're living in the future or the present with, how do I let go, by asking 3 questions.
I'm thinking about why people jump to organizing as opposed to the decluttering. And I feel like, and we just listed our house for sale. So obviously we did everything that we've wanted to get done in the last 3 years in like a week, like
Yeah.
decluttering, like
Time.
all
Yeah.
this stuff. Yeah. But I feel like the decluttering is the work. Like it's not fun. Whereas organization is like you see the pretty pictures on social media and you're like, I want to do that. So like that seems fun to people, but you need to do the work before you can have fun organizing.
Right. And our brains are wired because they've been wired our whole lives, because of our parents and just because of the way we're wired of, I spent too much money on it. Guess what? The money's gone. You can't get it back, right? It's gone. So we tell the story about the story about the story of why to keep it, of, it was free. It was for me. Like I should use it just because it was given. It was a gift, sentimentality, perfectionism. That's a huge one. For me, for a lot of women is you're so afraid to get it wrong. You're so afraid that you're going to let it go and you're going to need it, that it's easier to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you've made the decision in your head 100 times, but you've made no decision. So there's all those reasons we hang on to things, and people know those because, it's laughable of the, I paid too much money. What if I need it? Just in case. Perfectionism. What if I don't have enough money? It's all fear, right? Fear-based reasons to not let go. But all you need to do is say, snap out of it, get in the present. I don't want to keep making the decision over and over again because it's not good for my mental health and I'm beating myself up. Do I love this thing? Do I use this thing? Would I buy this thing again today? And if you don't even have to say, you could say yes to one and two to no, and the answer. It's to let it go. But we hang out in the past with the story about the story about the story and don't just address it. And we get in our own way. So when you're serious and you run out of time, or there's a time pressure or divorce or a death, you have to address it, and it gets addressed. So guess what? You can do it. You just don't want to do it.
100%.
We work with clients and we say, or in my how-to guides or anything, those 3 questions, just focus on those. Because if you're serious, you're just kidding yourself if you're dancing around those 3 questions and still going in the circle. If it's not a hard yes, it's a no. So get rid of it. And I'm not a minimalist. But the more you do that, the more that there's a neural pathway formed, and the easier it is the next time. You have to train your brain to go that route instead of hanging out in the past.
What are the 3 questions again?
Do I love this thing? So here, let's just pretend this is something sentimental, right? My mom gave this to me. It's a gadget. Do I love this gadget? No. My mom gave it to me. Do I use it? No. It's in a storage box downstairs. Would I buy this? No. Right? If it's something you love that your mom gave you, then you answered yes. Then you take a picture of it and let it go. But this is costing you your mental health, your space, your time, your energy, your money, and it's just not worth keeping. So ask those 3 questions and it just gets easier because they're reality. They're not a story about the story about why to keep it.
It's funny that I'm talking to you today about this because I was just at my mom's house the other day, and because of my dad's work, they have traveled all over the world, and they have picked up nice things in their travels. There's like statues from, all over the world, like Africa,
Mm-hmm.
like, masks from all these different tribes and like really cool stuff. But now they built a brand new house. It's very, like it's got like a minimalist kind of vibe to it. And she has all this travel stuff that she's trying to decorate her house with. It's like statues here and there and stuff hanging on the walls. And just the other day, she was like, what do I do with all this stuff? I don't like it anymore. It just collects dust. And I'm like, well, maybe you get rid of it. And she's like, well, there's memories attached to it. Like I'll look at that statue and it'll make me like think of our trip or something like that. And then I said, well, what are you going to do? You can't take them when you die. And like, you're going to leave all this shit for us?
No, yeah. Yeah.
And then you're going to put that on me?
And a
Like,
lot of
oh, I
people
can't get rid of
do.
this.
Yeah. So it's
Yes.
better to get rid of it at the time. So she should ask herself those 3 questions. Do I love these things? Yeah, but I can take a picture. And then you have to get out of fear and trust that the memory's in your heart. What happens
Mm-hmm.
is we start to associate with things, especially during COVID. But if you think about it, if you're a chef, if you're a cook, if your cookbook's got, water spilled all over and they got wrecked or they went up in a fire, you don't lose the ability to cook, but we start to connect with the things. And then we get into I'm a big meditator, and you can get in, like, it's just the more you let go, the more free you are of anything, thoughts, things. And I'm not saying get rid of everything, but it does help to let go, because then you can see the other side. But if you stay in the story, everything you want is right around the corner. You're just going the wrong way.
Yeah,
Right. But you want
I know.
it so badly. And I do say, yeah, things need to earn their right to be in your house, just like friends, right? So when you're going through your things, is this earned its right to be in my space? Because there's a cost to carrying it. So I always say to people, what are you losing to not get ahead and make the choice and let go? There's a cost, right? That's a big cost. I don't care how much something is worth, you're worth more. So let
Mm-hmm.
it go.
So if somebody's listening right now and they are thinking, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to declutter the house, go all in, where do people start? Like, how do they set up a system to do it efficiently and effectively? Do you go like room by room? Like, what do you recommend people do?
So there's a couple of different ways to do it. My how-to guides are focused on rooms, and I've got one for the kitchen, one for the pantry, one for the bathroom, and more coming out. So those are a way to focus on the room. And we always say, I always say, start in the bathroom, because there's not a lot of sentimental things in the bathroom. And so it's easiest. And you're going to get some wins. Like, that anxiety will be there because that's adrenaline. It means you're in the game, and that's a good thing. But you need to get some wins to push down on that adrenaline so you stay in the game. So if you can't wrap your head around doing the whole bathroom, then even start smaller. Start with gathering up all of the toothpaste. See how many you have, and then you can make a decision. Like, wow, I have too much toothpaste. I'm going to donate it. These are boxed up. I will never use this much. Do all the shampoos. And if you have 20 bottles of shampoos, pour them all into one. Really, your hair's not going to, unless it's a super special shampoo, but gather them all up so that you can see, I call it towns, so that you can see what you have in shampoo town. And then your brain will be more likely able to make a decision, because if all of the things aren't there, you get paralyzed. You're like, I don't know how many I have, and what if I need them, and just in case I need that one. And you start making excuses. But if you can see it all, reality in front of you, it's easier to make a decision. So if you don't want to tackle the whole room by taking everything out of the room and having things earn their right to be back in, with a garbage close by and a donation box close by, and start to build towns of similar things, and then you can put them away. If you can't do that, just start with one thing. Start with your shampoos. Start with hair elastics, right? Start with one thing. Start with free hotel shampoos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then don't get in your own way. If you really want this, which I think you do, whoever, then don't get in your own way. Do it.
It's crazy. You say hair elastics, but that's literally what I started with was scrunchies. Like, I had a basket under my bathroom counter of scrunchies, and people would send me scrunchies all the time. So I would just like throw them in this basket, throw them in this basket. And finally I was like, Renee, like, you don't need 100 scrunchies. Like, donate most of these. So I kept a few. And then I moved into my closet, and then I moved into like beauty products, and it can be overwhelming. And I know you've worked with like Jillian Harris and Sarah Landry, and we get sent stuff all the time, and like them on a different level than me, obviously, but it's still overwhelming. And I'm like, what do I do with this stuff? And it's like,
Yeah. And we accept it because of that kind of, if it's free, it's for me, or I can use this. But, I know working with a lot of people like that, they donate a lot to Mamas for Mamas
Yeah.
right away because you just, once it gets in your house, it's harder to get rid of it too. So you almost have to have a system set up. And, I say to people, ask yourself those 3 questions when you're at the store too, because some people say, I don't want to waste things. I don't want to throw them out and fill up the landfill. Well, if that really is your mantra, then be more careful when you're buying things, right? But then we get into the psychology of why people buy. And some people are so frustrated with their house that they keep buying, right? So once you tackle your house and your mental space, your physical space, sometimes a lot of those problems go away because the problem is the clutter. And if you address the clutter, then you sometimes lose that need to keep going and buying things to fix the problem at home, which is the clutter.
Do you have any recommendations for people when it comes to books? Because I am like a book hoarder. I don't buy novels. So if it's a fiction book, I'll have it on my Kindle and then it doesn't exist. Like
Right.
it's just, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But when it comes to nonfiction books, I need to have the physical book and I don't ever want to get rid of it. So you must come across people who have a ton of books.
Yeah. I think that in that case, if somebody has a beautiful bookshelf and it's not bothering them, but if you start to notice books everywhere, what happens is your brain notices those books. And what it does neurologically is something called duration path outcome. It says, how long is this going to last? How is it going to get, how am I going to get rid of it? And what's it going to look like when it's done? Duration path outcome. Duration path outcome is insomnia. So whether you like it or not, you might romanticize about those books and you might like them, but your brain is trying to solve how to get rid of them at night, all night, along with a lot of other problems. So the books is the easy one to get rid of. So I say to people, be a philanthropist for the day. You spent the money, you enjoyed it. There's a sunk cost and it just has to go. It has to be donated to somebody else before it's so old that it's not really current anymore, right? Like a wedding dress or something. Sometimes it's hard, but you got to let go because 2 years after your wedding, you're not going to be able to recoup any cost. Or if you donate it as a philanthropist or give it to somebody who doesn't have one, it's not going to be current. So there is a bit of a time thing involved that you have to get it out. I kind of say, what comes in has to go out. There has to be an equal exchange or your house is just going to explode. And it's not your cupboards that are too small. It's you that just isn't making a decision, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, story of my life. When we moved into this house, I was like, whoa, these people love storage. Like there's built-in storage, like beyond. And I'm like, why is the house so cluttered? We would go downstairs, open a cupboard door, and it's empty. Like all the drawers are empty, but like our house was just like full of stuff. And so we've done pretty good in the last week, but I want to, like, when we buy, I think we're moving to Guelph. So once we move into our new home, like I want it, that's like a fresh start. Like we're going to purge everything when we're here. And then in the summertime, when we move, like start fresh. And I would like to build systems. So when you have a client that fully declutters, so let's say the entire house is decluttered, they have only what they're keeping. Because my problem is I buy organizational things before I even have a plan for
Right.
them.
Yeah.
So how do people map out how to organize and what organizational tools or products they need?
So I keep going back to my how-to guide because that's why it's written. Like the steps are in there, right? And so for the kitchen, for example, I call them towns. So category of like things are called towns. And it's a funny way too, because then if your husband's looking for something, you're like, if he's like, where's the leash? You're like, well, it's in Dogtown. And it kind of, it takes the pressure off a fight potentially because it's, again, anxiety's building, which is adrenaline. And you're making a joke, which pushes down on adrenaline, the dopamine, and it just defeat, if you're trying to do a heavy weight and somebody makes a joke, sometimes you're able to do it, right? Because that's dopamine coming in and pushing down on adrenaline. So I like to call them towns, and people also then can think in towns, but most things, without being a cuckoo. Most things in your house should have towns, right? There should be candle town, appliance town, craft town. And then things have a place to go back to, because clutter really is anything that hasn't earned the right to be in your house, or if it has earned the right to be in there, it just hasn't found a permanent home or town. So there really shouldn't be a ton of random things, because you could have a random electronic box that you're not sure if you need them or not, but there shouldn't be too many random things. Things should have a place to go back to. And then your brain, without even thinking, it becomes like breathing or walking. Paper towel goes in paper towel town, or books go in book town. And then they go out of book town. When book town is full, they go out, right? You take a look at book town, you're like, I had too many books. But to answer your question, in the how-to guide, when you rip apart your kitchen and you make appliance town and it's sitting in front of you, and then you map out the kitchen of where they're going to go in the cupboard's the bad guy. If you have too many appliances that can't go in the space, then you need to cut down on the appliances you have. And that's right sizing. It's not a bad thing. You're just right sizing. So you need to adjust. I say, don't buy the container until you know how much you have, right? So if you rip apart your pantry and you see snack town is this big because you're at that age where your kids have a lot of snacks, then you need to get containers that are larger for snack town, right? Or if you're a baker. So you don't really know until you get all the things together, and then you're able to find the container for it to be contained, label it whatever, snack town, and then keep it like that and try not to let it exceed, because that means you just haven't let go. Now, snacks are different because you need to eat them, but you don't buy more when snack town is full, because that's all you need.
Totally. And that's, I think, where I always go wrong is I go and buy containers that I think are nice, and then I bring them home and I'm like, it doesn't even really, like, yeah.
It's like a double-edged sword. Is we can't organize someone's house without our trailer with some things to start with. So they might not be your ideal things to start with. You can start with shoe boxes or really cheap containers just to contain it. And then you can upgrade to baskets. And, if you want to take it that next step. But my whole motto is it's not perfection, it's progress. So you got to get in the game with some kind of containers to contain it. And I don't really care what you use, because I don't need it to be perfect, but it needs to work. So I would say declutter first, figure out how much you have, build the towns, put them in something, and then go to the store and say, okay, snack town requires this much shelf. I could use a basket like this. And then you go onto my Amazon store or do whatever and figure out what works. But you do need to start with something. But the gut wants you to go out to Walmart right away, or Canadian Tire or Home Depot, and buy the shelving. What happens if you get rid of all the photo albums? You don't need the shelving. So that's a delay in a way to go buy the shelving. See what you need first and then go buy what you need.
Yeah. And oftentimes I'll go buy a container, let's say for medications. I was like, oh, I'm going to organize all our bathroom stuff. So like digestion things will be in this container, and, cold and flu. So I buy all these containers, come home, go to put them in, and I'm like, well, frig, the bottles are too big to even put in the containers.
Yeah. Well, and that's, another thing I do on Instagram, again, I coach on these type of things that we're talking about. I show before and after so people visually can see what's normal. It's not all matchy. It's normal life. And then I also recommend quite a lot with links of what works most of the time. This is what usually works in bathroom town, right? I'm not going to tell you things that I think don't work, because then I look foolish, and you'd never tell your friends that I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing. So I recommend things that work. But there's a lot of steps before that. I love it. But I also really have grace for a lot of people who are frustrated, because it can be frustrating for all those reasons. I just wrote down, I did a poll on Instagram last week of what frustrates you. I was writing them down in my Remarkable before, because I thought these are all things I want to touch on in the how-to guide. There was over 5,000 different problems different problems, like where to start, heirlooms, husband on board, it just, the list was really long. So it's not like there's just one problem. And that's, I think, why we all find organizing and decluttering interesting, is because it's so relatable on so many different levels. But I'm here to tell you that there are solutions, and you just need a guide. Who's me? Like, I know what I'm doing, and I've been doing it for a long time. And you aren't born with the skill of how to let go. In fact, you're born with the opposite. It's like being a grumpy person and having work to be happy. Like, you need to read and you need to be taught. Same with letting go and decluttering. I think people think that it's like cleaning and we just should be able to do it, but you're not born with it. In fact, you're born with the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your parents have likely told you the opposite because they were born in the Depression or they immigrated and they had to hang on to things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if somebody, let's say they go through the process of decluttering, they're all organized now, do you do any kind of teaching or guidance on how to maintain? Because I feel like that is a struggle, especially with kids,
Yeah.
because sometimes I find myself like, there's no time to just like go put something where it belongs. So I like open the drawer and just like put it in the drawer. Or so what's your advice for people to maintain organization?
Well, if the systems are set up well, and there are a lot of tips and tricks, and I include those all on my page and my guides, then there's less room to fall. You're gonna, it's like taking a shower, right? Like, we know we have to shower every couple of days. You don't think that you can go through life without showering. And it's sort of the same with organizing and decluttering. You have to know that there is going to be some work to maintain it. It's not, people are facetious sometimes and they say, well, that's not going to last. Well, if you go into it with that attitude, it's really not going to. But if you set it up the right way, it will be easier to maintain. Just like Jillian's house with the math, 100 hours versus 20, because we had camera town set up. And in Camera Town, she had 20 cameras when we went back, and she had 18 the time before. So we knew we had to get rid of a couple because Camera Town was overflowing, and she didn't want more than what exceeded Camera Town. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So if you do the
Yeah.
hard work and you set it up at the beginning, you set your boundaries of physical constraint of, I don't really want more socks than what this one square bin will hold. So if it starts to overflow, then you need to revisit it. Every once in a while, you really have to do redesignation around your house, but it's easier because things have a place to go back to. So you're not paralyzed in that place of, well, I don't know where this goes because I don't have a USB town, right? Or a random electronic town. So you're dead in the water because you don't even know where this goes. So you just put it down. So you do have to do some work to go back and maintain it, but it's less work.
Mm-hmm.
The better you are at setting up the towns and being true to those three questions and not keeping everything, it's easier to maintain.
Yeah. So do you have advice for, because one thing I find difficult with children is that they're constantly like, they have toys, they grow out of those toys, clothes, they grow out of those clothes, shoes. And it's almost like a part-time job to go through his stuff every few months to purge, donate. So how do people stay on top of that?
So systems, you have to keep a system there where I recommend to people to have a bin on the floor, a bin up top that's too small, too big, right? Right in the place where you do it. And this is where it may not look home edit-ish because it isn't all matchy-matchy. And I say, who cares, right? Is it reality or is it fantasy? And also, is it, when you go to sell a house, practical town doesn't work, right? You can't have super practical town when you're trying to make it glamorous. But when you live in it, it has to be practical. So have a too big, too small bin right in the room so that you can shuttle it right into the place where it goes. I also have a piece of painter's tape in my laundry room from the floor to a waist height of how tall my kids are, so that when I'm doing the wash, I can measure the pants. And if they're too short, I make the decision and just put them in donate right away every time I'm doing the laundry. So there's tips and tricks of how to stay on top of it. Keep socks in the mudroom, right? When you're getting your kids out the door, keep them a basket of socks right by the door so you don't have to go all the way up. And there's little tips and tricks in efficient ways to make it easier for yourself. But it's not going to be perfect. And it does take work, but it shouldn't be a full-time job, and it shouldn't cause you a ton of anxiety. If it does, it means you have too much stuff. You're managing too much stuff, right? And I do see a ton of people who have 18 loads of laundry and then they just go to the Gap and buy more because they just don't want to do the laundry.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Do you have a junk drawer in your house?
I do. Yeah. It's an organized junk drawer though. And I'm not perfect. I'm like the shoe repair guy who needs new shoes, right? What's the expression? Hairdresser who needs a haircut. Because I love to do other people's houses and then I sometimes ignore my own. But I have a junk drawer, but it has the necessary junk drawer things that need to be in my kitchen because that's high value real estate. So it's got scissors, it's got pens, it's got a couple tools, paper. It's got just the things that it needs. It doesn't have bills. It doesn't have photos. It doesn't have things that belong elsewhere because that kitchen is super high real estate. What a nut I am. Hey, I'm passionate about this stuff. I do love it because there's solutions, right? And I want to help women, men, anybody get rid of those negative messages that go through their heads every time they open their kitchen cupboard and they're like, oh my God, I'm such a terrible mom. I'm so behind. And like, oh, I'm not successful at this. Those are bad messages that if you hear them enough, you start to believe them. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. So clearing the clutter and getting organized and getting systems in place, stop those messages.
Mm-hmm. So is that part of because I know there's a lot about how clutter impacts people's mental health without them maybe even realizing. And I can say, like, just with our house being, my son is at my mom's house. So our house is like set up perfectly. And it's just so crazy to walk around and be like, oh my God, like everything is in its place. Like there's no clutter. The closet is clear. Like, and it is, like I feel totally different.
Well, there was a study done by UCLA a few years ago, and they found that women's cortisol or stress hormone was directly linked to how many things they had in their house. So the more you have, the higher your cortisol or your stress level is. So if that isn't proof in itself that it's a problem of too much stuff it does cause you stress.
Yeah.
So what's more important, your mental health or, $5 mug times 10, add that up. I don't care what the value is. Your mental health is worth more. So it just comes down to, it's almost like being that parent who doesn't want to deliver the bad news and be the bad mom or, not the friend. Like it's tough love and you have to be, there has to be tough love with your things.
Yeah. I used to collect all through grad school. Every time I would travel, I would collect the Starbucks mug for that city.
Yeah.
And so finally, and this was just a couple years ago, I was like getting so fed up. Like there's me and my husband that use a mug in this house. Why do we have 45 mugs in the stupid cupboard? So finally I found somebody else. She was a friend with my realtor and she collects the Starbucks mugs. I was like, here, like take them all. Like, oh, and like I have to say, I do not miss those mugs at all.
Yeah, you usually don't. Collections are tricky, right? Because then you get attached to it and it becomes a hobby. But unless you display your collection and you love it and you cherish it and it's on the wall, a collection downstairs in a bin it's not really a collection. It's clutter.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's hard. It's hard.
It is. And I feel like having kids almost like exacerbates the struggle because there is so much more stuff and your environment is less in your control. You feel like you have to have toys everywhere because like, especially with young kids, I know a lot of people struggle with that. Like, how do you maintain or contain toys and your children's like craft stuff? And especially when they're really little, because it's not like they can be off in a separate room by themselves. So then your living room, your main living area, and nowadays every house is open concept, which like I don't like open concept anymore for this reason. It's like I want contained smaller rooms throughout the house. But so what's your advice for parents who feel like their entire main living area is just taken over by kids stuff?
Kids things are tricky. That's a tricky time for sure. But there is a solution of toy rotation and it does work. I think that we buy things, again, it's that cycle of guilt, and then you buy things and then you feel guilty and you buy things and then you have too much stuff. Toy rotation works really well because kids then find they're new, but you need to then be hard on yourself and be true to yourself and not buy things out of guilt because you just have too many toys for the kids and then the kids are overwhelmed and you're overwhelmed. It's really worth a try, right? To have one bin out, one bin away, or a couple bins away in the basement and rotate it. And they can thrive and survive with so much less than you think they can.
It's wild. When I tell you my son, he went through a dinosaur phase. He probably had, because what I did was I made a playroom with one of our extra bedrooms. So I put all his like older toys that he wasn't interested in, like I put them away in this like playroom. So when we were going to list our house for sale, I went through, like that was part of my what I wanted to get done was go through all his toys. I made a bin of the dinosaur figurines that we had,
Dinosaur
like
town. Yeah.
unbelievable. And without even realizing it, because you go to the store, like like this like cool dinosaur, like he makes noises, like, oh, cool. Okay. Like nobody needs that many dinosaurs. And so I was like, Milo, like we're going to have to donate some of your toys like to other kids who might not have as many toys. And I was like, which dinosaurs do you want to like give away? Of course none. Like no, he needs them all. Like he doesn't understand that part of it yet. So we've kind of had to do it behind his back, but yeah, I don't even think he would realize if we got rid of 75% of his toys.
Yeah. And it's a good exercise to do with kids at the right age to start to train them young by asking those three questions. And they might say no to all of them. They might say, yeah, I love it, mom. I want to keep it, mom. And yeah, I would buy it. But you are teaching them those three questions instead of training them of, oh, look, it's so cute. Let's keep it. And, so it does go in, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. It's worth repeating those three questions to your kids. They may not get rid of any that day, but at least they'll know those questions to ask themselves a little bit later. So I think it is a good idea to involve your kids. Sometimes you do have to just make that decision without them, because you'll never get rid of anything if you check with them about every single little thing, but it's worth teaching them those questions for sure. But kids, it's a tricky time. And then it's a tricky time too for some people who say my kids are gone and they left all their things at their house. But if you think about it, it comes down again to that tough love of your space, time, energy, mental and physical health and relationships. It's important to you. And so you have to be hard and say, listen, I'm giving you until the end of May to come and go through your rooms. If you don't need it, I'm going to donate it. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard parenting, but it's worth doing because there's a cost and you can't carry that cost. You're just delaying the cost that they don't want to deal with.
Yeah. And chances are, if one day they ended up with all of that stuff, they would probably just get rid of it at that point.
Exactly. Just like you did when the rubber met the road and you had to move, or, if there is a death, sadly, or a divorce. But I always tell clients when they're struggling is, what's it costing you to not take my course? Or what's it costing you to not get, like, there's a massive cost. So like, it's it's pennies in comparison. But you need a guide. You need someone to guide you. And I have ADHD. I wrote the guides. I have ADHD, and I wrote these guides for people basically who have ADHD because I didn't want to miss anything. And everything has come through my head, and I've seen I've seen a lot in 14 years. So most of the information's in there.
Do you have any advice for children's artwork? Because I struggle with this. Like he'll come home with like a piece of paper with like one crayon scratch and I'm like, "Oh my God." And he has like this art bin. I've never gotten rid of one thing. But like it's going to be overwhelming eventually. There's so much.
So ask some of your moms who have teenagers, and they'll tell you that they don't want any of it. So it's your art at this point, really. I would say, if you don't want to deal with it later, be wiser now and just keep the ones that are really special. You can't keep it all. Make a book, Plum Prints. There's companies that do those books, but wait until they're a little bit older and the work starts to get different, and then you can keep one from each phase. But,
That's a good idea.
But again, you don't want to deal with it in 16 years. And I just did it with my kids and they didn't want anything. I'm like, really?
They're
what
like,
about this
"Gee,
cute
thanks,
little
Mom."
story? Yeah, they don't want it. And I'm certainly not going to make them keep it, but it did feel weird taking that entire bin and dumping it in the recycle bin. But it's harder the longer you keep. I wouldn't have remembered those things. So if if to a younger self, I would have said, just keep a few and don't keep the ones that are, again, just a pencil marker. If you have 5 kids, you don't even know who did it, right? There's frames too that are really neat that hold up like 120 pictures. I have them in my store, black, nice frames, and you can just put the feature one up front and shift the rest to the back, or take them out and just open the case, open the door, put it in, close it, and it becomes a framed piece for that week. And then, the kids feel great about it. But you do have to recycle it. It's once it comes in your house again, right? So keep it right where you unpack their backpacks, a little recycled garbage.
It's almost like learning little tools for all these different things. Like I love that idea of putting like the artwork piece of the week in a frame and he can see it up on the wall. Like,
well, it's new to you, and other moms have been through it. And with 170,000 people on my page, I get great suggestions from people too. And I think it's all about permission, right? Permission to be kind to yourself, that this is new to you. Permission also then to be firm with yourself so that you don't have to deal with it later, because it gets harder when they're older, right? Little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. It's true. And you don't want to have to deal with this all when you've got bigger problems too. So it's hard, it's tricky, but it's everybody struggles with it. And you have to be kind to yourself because these are new skills. You're not putting Windex on a cloth and wiping windows. You're dealing with emotions and triggers that you're not even aware of. And your brain is doing all sorts of work in the background to make you want to keep things. So be brave and stick to those 3 questions. And a lot of people find the inspirational, real reality situations that I talk about in Instagram helpful, because they're things that people have struggled with. They're like, yeah, that's a problem for me too. And I try to show solutions to everything.
mm-hmm. Okay, well, if people are listening and they want to get started with your how-to guide or find out more about what you do, where can they go? And also, I know you mentioned the how-to guide, but do you have anything else for people?
I will soon. The problem is I'm with clients all day, so I don't have time to get all these things out of my head, but they are in the works. So right now on my website, which is Go-Simplified, my last name's Golightly too, which is an interesting name for an organizer, but it's Go-Simplified is my website. And that's where you can find the how-to guide for the kitchen, the how-to guide for the pantry, the how-to guide for the bathroom and the linen closet. You can book a one-on-one session with me where I coach you through these type of things specific to you. And we also organize in Calgary. And I'm going to be doing more video courses. I'm just doing them right now because I think visually it's nice to see those things and to hear. I'm going to put way more into those courses about the psychology behind it instead of just the steps, because
Mm-hmm.
I'd be doing you a disservice if I just gave you the steps, because this is the important part, the psychological part.
Yeah, understanding where it's coming from. Like you said, it's not just about doing it. It's almost like reframing how you look
Perspective
at
shift.
things.
Yeah. And new
Yeah.
neural pathways. The neuroscience behind it is huge. And then Instagram, which is at GoSimplified. I am going to start some YouTube stuff too, because again, I think it's just short, little bite-sized courses, so to speak, of 5 minutes of how to get started, or 5 minutes of how to deal with your family and your husband who aren't on board. And it becomes psychological, really. Then it's more counseling, because I've seen it for 14 years.
I love it. Well, when we move into our new house, I will be calling you to help me set it up.
You need to set it up right from the beginning. It's a 44-page kitchen guide. There's a lot of pictures in there too, images of where things should go, but it's the how to get started, how much time it takes, how to do it. There's little labels in there of each town, each category you're going to find. So we always tell people to take that guide, cut out the page of the labels, and label your kitchen first of where things are going to go. And then things go in. Because if you start just randomly putting things in, you're going to get to your cutlery and you're going to say there's no room for the cutlery. So it goes in order of importance of what goes in first and where it should go and how you usually organize it.
That's a really good idea. I'm probably going to hire my mom to come help me.
Yeah,
So
yeah, do it together, but go through those
she'll be
steps.
on it
Go through the steps of
for
the guide.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This was great.
And I'm on a roll.